I'm a lot of things, but subtle is not a word that has been used to describe me. And proving that, we'll shift gears entirely. This is a section from my horror comedy novella, Zombies Ate My Homework, which is part of the Shingles series that I write along with my cohorts on the Authors and Dragons podcast. We refer to these as Goosebumps for grown-ups. And they have very colorful, lively covers, and when I'm doing comic book conventions, 10-year-olds run up and they're like, and they point at them and they're like, "Oh, mommy." And I look at the parent and say, This is a lovely story of a middle school field trip to a science museum. And a bus breaks an axle. While they're waiting on a new bus, the zombie apocalypse starts.
Yes, it does.
And the students have to take refuge in one of the only open businesses in an abandoned strip mall. And they think it will be safe because of the adorable kitten on the sign. And they venture into the Hello Kitty adult novelty store. And this is the scene where they have to go looking for things to fight off the zombie horde. And you laugh, and I promise that it is worse than you're imagining. Tariq's rant cut off in mid-babble as Michaela walked up and slapped him across the face. "Shut up, moron! This isn't one of your stupid TV shows. This is real life with real zombies. We can't go out the front because there's zombies right outside the door. We can't go out the back because there's no delivery door. Just a bunch of little rooms with TVs in them and holes in the wall at weird places. So shut up and go find some weapons." She turned to Todd and smiled. "Yes, this is the part of the movie where you realize that I'm way hotter than that potty-mouth bitch Tiffany, and you start riffling through your spank bank for memories of me in that two-piece bathing suit I wore all last summer." "Hey," Tiffany exclaimed. "No offense," Michaela replied, raising one hand to the other girl. "But you know it's true. Besides, I'm the tomboy best friend. We're destined to be together." Tiffany thought for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, you're right. Besides, I'm like super gay." "Oh, thank God," Alexandra said. "I was afraid we were going to have to go through all of high school getting finger banged in the backseat of football players' Hondas, pretending to get off, and we'd never hook up until we went to college and I could get you drunk." "Nah, I'd never leave you hanging like that," Tiffany said, giving her friend a quick kiss on the lips. "Want to come over Saturday? We could comb each other's hair." She waggled her eyebrows and Alexandra laughed. "If you guys are all done making hookup dates, can we please get some weapons up in this biatch?" Andy asked. He then turned and picked up a blue plastic shopping basket and started off down an aisle. Todd nodded, then turned to the rest of them. "You heard him. What are you waiting for?" He headed off down a different aisle from Andy, strange thoughts about Michaela tumbling over each other in his head. If they didn't die today, the two of them were definitely going to have a talk. He saw something that looked like a short anaconda hanging on a peg and pulled the package down. "Purple Passion Double Pleaser," he read, turning the heavy plastic cylinder over in his hands. Todd ripped the plastic open, and the thing unfurled like a snake. A big sausage from the butcher shop, only purple and made of plastic. "What the hell is this thing?" he mused, then got a closer look at one end. "Oh, well, that's obviously supposed to be but what's the other end for?" He turned the toy around in his hands, noting that the other end looked identical. Weird. "Well, whatever, it's heavy and it's at least 1.5 feet long, so I should be able to bash some zombies with it." He shoved the double-headed dildo through his belt like a sword and plunged deeper into the toy store looking for things he could use as a weapon. 10 minutes later, the kids all gathered back at the front of the store with bulging baskets and full pockets. "Okay, what do we find?" Todd asked. "I got this," Tariq said, holding up a black leather thong. "I don't think that's your size, T," Andy said, laughing. "No, smartass, but I bet Elizabeth has scissors behind that counter, don't you?" Tariq asked. "I certainly do, and I can't wait to see what you're thinking to do with that." She reached over beside the cash register and handed him a pair of orange-handled craft scissors. Tariq made one cut at the bottom of the leather triangle, then cut off the crotch strap of the thong. Then he cut the waistband at the back and held up his creation. "Ta-da! Yippee, you made a loincloth out of underwear," Andy said, stifling a laugh. "Dude, it's a sling. Haven't you played any RPG video games?" Tariq said. He reached down into his basket and pulled out a small metal ball, a little more than an inch in diameter. "With this, I can take down a zombie from a distance." He put the ball in the leather pouch of the thong, swung the sling around his head a couple of times, then released one end of the thong, sending the ball hurtling through the air, right over Michaela's head. The girl ducked, glaring at Tariq. "That had better have been an accident," she growled. "I might need to work on my aim," the big boy said, ducking his head. "Andy, what'd you get? And please tell me it's not a slingshot made out of underwear." "Where'd those balls come from, anyway?" Todd asked. There's a bunch of them back on a shelf," Tariq said. "They said something about Benoit, whoever he is." "Must have been some kind of sex ninja," Todd mused. "What you got, Andy?" "I went back to the supply closet," Andy replied, holding up a pair of broken broomsticks. "I know it's not as cool as Tariq's ninja balls, but I don't need to practice to shove these through a zombie's head." "And if we never have to hear the phrase Tariq's ninja balls again, we'll be lucky," Alexandra said, stepping forward. "Tiffy and I went to the dark side and checked out the 50 Shades merchandise shelf. My mom says those movies are just poser porn, but I don't know what that means." "I don't care what it means if I get to crush some zombie brains in with this thing," Tiffany said, holding up a black paddle with a red handle. The package said this thing has a metal core and said something about a safe word. "I don't think zombies can use words anymore, so I'm just going to bash their heads in." "I brought a bunch of fake leather clothes we can put on for armor and stuff," Alexandra added. "Looks good, girls. Michaela, what about you?" "What about you, Todd? What the hell do you have in your belt, like some kind of weirdo sword?" Michaela asked, turning the question back on him. "It's some kind of fake dick, but it's friggin' huge and heavy. I figure it ought to be able to knock a zombie down at least. Then I can use this weird push dagger thing to jab it in the eye and kill it." He held up a short, black, tapered plug about 4 inches long with a narrow shaft and a flared base. When he put it between his fingers just so, it looked almost like he had an ace of spades sticking out of his fist. "I ought to be able to fist a zombie right in the eye socket with this thing," he said proudly. Elizabeth fell to her knees behind the counter, overcome with a sudden coughing fit. "I'm fine," she called out. "I'm fine. Just go ahead making plans. I'll be down here working on something. Anything, really." "Oh, that's pretty good, Todd," Michaela said. "I don't have anything that good. Just this thing I snapped off something in the back called the fuckerator." She held up a dildo on a long metal shaft. "I call it the dick spear. Not very original, I know, but the metal rod goes all the way up into the rubber penis, so if I can wrap some tape around the end, I should be able to spear a zombie with it." Tiffany smiled and walked over to her. "I think it would work better this way." She turned the spear around and pressed Michaela's hands around the rubber penis, leaving the jagged metal end open for zombie stabbing. "Ooh, yeah, that's good, Tiff, thanks." Michaela spun the redesigned dick spear around a few times, jabbing it in Todd's general direction. After a few pokes, he slapped it away with his purple pleaser sword, and in seconds they were in a mid-pitched mock duel right in the middle of the store. Eventually, Michaela's extra reach prevailed, and Todd held up his hands, giant fake cock wobbling in his right, and said, "I yield. I bow to the power of the dick spear." Just then, there was a banging at the door. So I mentioned something completely different, right? That's Shingles. It's a series of books of which that is one of the tamer. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You've all been warned. I'm proud to announce that Tantor Media has issued a contract for the audiobook for the second collection of Shingles novellas after producing the first audiobook collection to zero critical acclaim, but pretty solid sales. Do you have any questions about Shingles? Or about the exhaustive research I had to do for... Feel free to stop by the Falstaff Books table and ask my editor which parts of that book she had to look up. It was very... Editing the Shingles series has been very educational for her.
Gave you both an excuse to go wandering through adult stores.
Who's your editor?
Her name's Melissa MacArthur. She's a guest here at the con. And I highly recommend that in the Q&A of the most serious panel that you ask her what parts of Zombies Ate My Homework she had to look up. And how much of the Shingles series she's had to check out on urbandictionary.com. It was a lark. We thought it would be fun to write Goosebumps for grown-ups. We never actually expected very many people to buy them. They've been successful beyond our wildest imaginings, and like I said, Tantor Audio is now paying us for the privilege of producing the audiobooks. So, funny story. When we sold the audiobooks, the first collection has both male and female point of view characters. So we had two narrators. When the narrators got the manuscripts, both of them are well-regarded audiobook narrators, and they do a fair amount of romance of various levels of heat. So they have a following as narrators because audiobook listeners follow narrators. Both of them, independently of each other, emailed us to ask if we would mind if they recorded this under a pseudonym. We didn't mind.